A 150-pound Fila Brasileiro tied to a fence post on a rural Vermont road in 14-degree weather, with a note that said only, "He's too much for us." 9 months later, that same dog dragged a woman out of her own bed at exactly 3:14 a.m. on a freezing February night. And what he did before the fire department arrived would become the reason Hannah Reeves is alive today. Hannah Reeves was 31 years old, recently divorced and living alone in a small farmhouse her grandmother had left her in rural Vermont. The nearest neighbor was 600 yards up the road. The nearest town was 14 minutes away. The silence in that house at night was the kind you could feel pressing against your skin. She worked as a freelance graphic designer. Her husband had left her in March, and by October, Hannah had stopped answering her mother's calls. Coffee at 6, work until 5, dinner alone, bed by 10. A week at 2:30 every night, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't looking for a dog. It was a Tuesday in late October when Hannah was driving home from the grocery store at 6:42 p.m. The sky had already gone black. Her headlights hit something tied to a fence post about a mile from her driveway. She slowed down, stopped, backed up. A massive dog was sitting in the dirt, leashed by a thick rope to the wooden post. Tan-colored, black mask, heavy folds of skin around his face. He didn't bark, he didn't move. He just stared at her headlights with eyes that had already decided nothing was coming. Pinned to his collar was a wet, folded note. Hannah read it under her dome light. "He's too much for us. Free to good home. Please." He must have weighed 150 pounds. His ribs were visible. His paws were swollen. An old scar ran across his muzzle. The temperature was dropping fast. Hannah sat on that dirt road for 32 minutes talking to him about nothing. Her grocery list, her grandmother, the weather. The dog didn't growl. Eventually, she untied the rope and led him to her truck. He climbed into the passenger seat like he had been waiting for someone to open that door his entire life. The vet identified the breed the next morning, Fila Brasileiro, a Brazilian guardian dog originally bred to hunt jaguars and protect cattle ranches, banned in 11 countries, famous for a trait the breed standard actually requires, ojeriza, a deep instinctive distrust of strangers. "He's not aggressive," the vet said carefully, "but you need to understand what he is. A Fila chooses one person, and that person becomes everything." Hannah named him Bruno on the drive home. The first week was a quiet kind of chaos. Bruno wouldn't eat unless Hannah sat on the kitchen floor next to him, so she sat. He followed her into every room, the bathroom, the laundry room, the basement when she went down to check the furnace. If she shut a door, he lay down outside it with his giant wrinkled head flat against the floor, just waiting. He slept across her bedroom doorway every single night, 150 pounds of brindle muscle blocking the entrance like he was guarding something he had finally found. By the second month, Bruno started doing the thing the vet had warned her about. He would walk up to her at her desk, press his entire body against her leg, and stand there for 10 minutes at a time. Hannah read about it later. Filas lean to feel their person's heartbeat. I see you've watched this far but still haven't subscribed. That stings a little. Stories like Bruno's deserve to be seen. Hit subscribe. You'll want to see what happens next. By month 4, Bruno had filled out to a healthier 158 pounds, and the scar across his muzzle was the only reminder of whatever life he had lived before. Hannah had changed too. She walked Bruno 3 miles every morning and lost 15 pounds without trying. The mail carrier had learned to honk from the road. The UPS driver stayed inside his truck. Anyone who walked up Hannah's gravel driveway met 158 pounds of Brazilian guardian dog standing at the porch like he had been carved out of stone. But behind closed doors, Bruno was a giant baby. He slept with his enormous head on her stomach. He cried if she closed the bathroom door. The most dangerous-looking dog in the county was, in private, a 158-pound shadow who needed to know exactly where she was at all times. If that just made you smile, you already understand why we tell these stories. Then came February 14th. Hannah had gone to bed at 10:30 p.m. after a long Sunday. The wind outside was howling at 19 below zero. The furnace clicked on every 20 minutes, and the old farmhouse groaned the way it always did in deep cold. Bruno was at his usual post, stretched across the bedroom doorway, his ribs rising and falling in slow, even sleep. At 3:14 a.m., Hannah was woken up by something she had never heard from him in 9 months. A bark, loud, sharp, once, then again. Bruno was on his feet, pulling at her comforter with his teeth, not gently. He had the corner of the blanket in his mouth and was dragging it off the bed, off of her. Hannah tried to sit up and the room spun. Her head was throbbing, her chest felt tight, like she had been breathing through a wet washcloth for hours. She couldn't think straight. Bruno shoved his huge head under her arm and pushed. She fell out of the bed onto the cold floor. He grabbed the sleeve of her sweatshirt and started backing toward the bedroom door, dragging her 2 feet at a time across the wooden floorboards. Hannah's bare feet were numb. Her vision was tunneling. Somewhere downstairs, the smoke alarm was chirping in a slow, dying way. Bruno didn't stop pulling until they were both on the front porch. He kept pulling until they were both face down in 8 inches of snow. The cold air hit her lungs like a slap. Hannah's head started to clear after about 90 seconds. Bruno pressed his entire 158 pounds against her chest, his body keeping her warm. She fumbled for her phone, called 911. The fire department arrived in 14 minutes. Within 30 seconds of opening the front door with their gas meters, every man on the crew started backing away. The carbon monoxide reading inside Hannah's bedroom was 380 parts per million. Lethal levels start at 150. A cracked heat exchanger in her grandmother's old furnace had been pumping invisible, odorless gas into the upstairs for hours. She wouldn't have woken up at 6 a.m. at all. The fire chief, a 22-year veteran named Tom Briggs, knelt next to her in the snow and looked at Bruno. He said it quietly, "I have never in my entire career seen a dog do that. He didn't smell smoke, he smelled the gas, and then he made you leave." Hannah's neighbor up the road had a security camera that caught her front yard. The footage showed the porch light flicking on at 3:18 a.m., Hannah stumbling out the front door at 3:21 a.m., both of them collapsing in the snow at 3:23 a.m., and Bruno, even after she fell, refusing to leave her side, pressed against her in the dark until the red flashing lights came up the road at 3:28 a.m. Today, Hannah is 32. Bruno is an estimated 5. The 150-pound Fila Brasileiro that someone tied to a fence post and called too much still sleeps across her bedroom doorway every single night. She moved closer to town that spring. Bruno comes with her everywhere, to the grocery store, to her mother's house, where everyone has finally stopped being afraid of him. Hannah keeps a carbon monoxide detector in every room now, but she trusts Bruno's nose more than any device on the wall. When friends ask her about that night, she doesn't talk about the gas or the firefighters or how lucky she got. She just looks down at the giant brindle shadow at her feet and says, "I rescued a dog. Then he saved my life." Sometimes the ones the world calls too much are exactly enough, and sometimes the dog who chooses you knows things about you that you don't know yet. Was this instinct or was this love? Can a dog really know things we can't? Tell me what you think in the comments.